Hey folks, Mark Edward Lewis here again with a quick down and dirty little educational video from a question that happened in the forum from our friend here, V. I call him V because I can't possibly pronounce his name. First of all, I want to note that this film won many nominations, including for the best sound design and mixing. I want to achieve the same effect within the addition of subharmonics on the main character's voice. Here's my method, which I found out by ear. Now, he's talking about Mad Max Fury Road, which I got to say, I think shouldn't have won a lot of awards for the mixing because it had the worst ADR I have ever heard. I mean, it was just really, really awful. Anyway, but everyone has their opinion. What he did is he created a bus track and added Waves low air at a frequency of 60 to 76 and also added a compressor, which is, a good start. The subharmonics only sound from the right and left channels via aux or pre-fader. The center channel, as in the original film, is left dry. And that's a good place to start. The problem is you're only going to get the super lows that the low air gives you, but you're not going to get the grit. You're not going to get anything that's going to be able to cut through the mix. And unless you're running that low air plug-in to like the subwoofer or an LFE, you're just not going to get that punch. But something seems to me to sound not so. How will you do it and at what frequency? And then he gave me a couple of examples. Let's check it out. We're going to have some fun. We're here in Adobe Audition. There it is. This is a clip that I've duplicated a few times, and you'll see why in a second. But let's just listen to it.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister.
And this is a clip, obviously, it's me from the Cinema Sound Education where I was teaching how to replace one actor with another in ADR. So this is actually ADR. You'll hear a little reverb in there. We added that. Actually, this is from the post process. It's not in the room, just to help blend the dialogue in mono, which we talk about in that education, why you should use mono reverb for dialogue in a very slight way. But we're not going to do that at all. We're going to talk about making huge, giant, low frequency, crazy Mad Max type sounds for the dialogue. So let's just do a simple one. Just on this one track here, you can see I've got a bunch of plugins instantiated. But so let's take this voice, and I don't, you know how it is when you listen to yourself on tape. You sound so thin, and I don't like what my voice sounds like when I listen to myself back. And believe me, I've heard it a lot. Yeah! So let's just take Waves, the sound shifter, which is one of the best sound shifter plugins you're going to find. And you can see you've got semitones or half steps for you musicians. And you can move it all around and have different modes. For this, we definitely want to have the smooth mode. Let's drop it just a couple of cents, maybe a couple of dimes. There's 100 cents in a half step or a semitone. That's why we say we drop it a couple of bucks. But in this case, 36 cents.
Only the most daft of rats.
Maybe I should turn it on. That'd be great.
Only the most daft
of rats.
And you can go really low with it.
Sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister. Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship.
Maybe about there.
Your choices have caught up with you, sister.
So first of all, we have a little more body to it. Then let's add a little doubling plugin. This is the Waves doubler. And what it does is it gives you two different additional voices that you can fool around with. You can pan them, EQ them differently, and all kinds of stuff. We're going to use both of these. This is what it sounds like.
The most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship.
Now already it's much more stereo, but we want the delay to be as close to 0 as possible. We don't want to add delay. This is really a music tune, a music plugin for helping a single vocalist sound like a bunch of vocalists by detuning them. We're going to detune a little bit more than that, maybe 11 cents and maybe 11 cents the other way.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister.
And what we're really doing is adding a pseudo chorus effect. And you could do this with a chorus effect too, but I like this better because it gives me more control and I can pan things wherever I want.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship.
And have really specific control. So already it's kind of more Zulu cool. And then let's add that low air. But now that we've added some cool extra bits to it, we should get a better result. I agree with him that with V that we should have it around 60 to 70 hertz. We can have it lower, but at that point, you're really going to want to send it to the LFE. And we typically don't want to do that unless you have a really strong effect, in which case you can.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister. Only the most daft of rats.
And you can really hear that octave down there. Only the most, just down there. Unless you're listening not on the Cinema Sound headphones or some other horrible pair of headphones or your laptop speakers, in which case you can't tell anything that's happening.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship.
Add a little more
Your
this way.
choices have caught up with you, sister.
Super cool. And then we want to add it so it's even more Zulu Crazy Stereo. Let's turn this on. This is the Waves Imager S1. I just turn it all the way up.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship.
That's super dope. And then I want to add a little extra bump to this whole thing. This is the Renaissance Equalizer. It's a really super nice, easy to use, smooth sounding EQ that comes with the Waves Gold package, which Cinema Sound members get a discount on. Let's just raise a shelf, a few dB here, somewhere down here.
Only the most daft of rats.
And we'll add a little extra bump up here, just to get some more sizzle.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister. Only the most.
Now that's pretty dope, right? Compared to where we were, if I turn all these off.
Only the most daft.
Only the most daft.
That's pretty dope. Let's do another one because we're having a good time. So let's do, because we have multiple tracks, let's do something really crazy. And let's take this track now, leaving this one alone, muting it, and let's drop it an octave. So we're going to take this and we're just going to say, hey, give me a whole octave down.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship.
Pretty gross. But let's see what happens if we do the same kind of thing with the doubler, where we'll say as short as possible, detune it maybe 15 cents, maybe this is 15 cents, make sure they're panned.
Only the most daft of rats
We're going to add the low air,
sinking ship. Your choices have caught up.
but this time a little bit lower, maybe in that 60 hertz if we dare.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister.
And then the widener,
The most daft of rats tries to sail a.
and then we're going to do the low shelf again from Renaissance EQ. We're going to add this.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship.
Now there's a lot of a really harsh sibilants because of the pitch shifting process. So let's get rid of some of those
Only the most daft of rats
by finding them.
tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister. Only the most daft of rats.
And now let's return most of those high frequency sibilants that we like by doing a little shelf this way.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship.
Now that's pretty awesome compared to where we were, right?
Only the most
Daft of rats.
Pretty dope. But what happens if we add them all together? Unmute. Now this track is unmolested. But it's still muted.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship.
And that's a little too crazy, isn't it? So let's drop this low octave a little bit, maybe 10 decibels.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister. Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you.
Now let's do this. Let's add the original voice back in. We'll leave it dead mono.
Only the most daft of rats.
And we'll bring this center channel down a little bit because we want to maybe keep the original timbre of that voice, the talent.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister. Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship.
Let's turn the sound shifter off. Let's see what happens.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister. Only
Pretty cool. Now let's do something else. You wouldn't have noticed because you can't see it, but I've routed all these channels to a bus. This is this bus. And on this bus, I have a few plugins which will then process all of these channels at once. First, let's pull up the C1 compressor and see I've added some snap to the attacks.
Only the most daft of rats.
So it's a little snappier.
Tries to sail a sinking ship.
In fact, we can make it more.
Your choices have caught up with you, sister. Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship.
And with it off,
Only the most
well, I should make up some gain, shouldn't I? Here we go.
only the most daft of rats try.
And with it off,
Only the most daft of rats.
and with it on.
Only the most daft of rats.
So those attacks really get strong. And then I've added a little EQ here, another version, another more bass and more mid-range for all these parts.
Only the most daft of rats.
And then low air, another low air on top of it down here in the 50 hertz zone.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister. Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship.
Well, that's pretty crazy dope. And just in case you thought I was going over on the master, as always, I have a limiter at minus 0.2. I don't know why I was at minus 0.4. So that way I'm never going over.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship.
That's pretty dope. And if you're not listening on headphones, you're not under, or some kind of big speaker system, you're not understanding how fat this sounds. But hopefully, V, that gives you some great ideas for making your own gigantic Mad Max sounding verb voice. You know what? Let me add you one more thing. This is fun, right? Who's having a good time? I'm going to add before the reverb. Here, this is the bus. I'm going to add waves. You've seen me do this before. Let's just do it this way. Guitar, amp, stereo. And we'll just add a little bit of this and see what happens. Hi. Do, 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 do.
Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister. Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister. Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister. Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship. Your choices have caught up with you, sister. Only the most daft of rats tries to sail a sinking ship.
If you want to add serious destruction to your voiceover and just make it really brutal. I'm Mark Edward Lewis, and we'll see you in post.
Even if for yourself.